Right, pull the wires up through the frame and you get your plug. Just push it together till it clips into place, and then basically I get these wires inside your clips and clamp them shut. And this front one, a bit more of a pain in the arse. Right, and then get your screw out of there. Feed your earth through it. And then just tighten that up. Right, and that's your connectors all back in place on that bit. I mean, obviously I've still to come with get me clutch housing back on, the clutch release housing back on, but I'll do that later. We'll just get this wiring sorted first. What I did off camera as well, which I got my oil pipes on, but that's just a case of shove them on and tighten your clips up. So, and also when we were doing the swing arm, and behind this cover there was what I was saying was a bolt, tighten the bolt up and stuff. It's actually a nut. I don't know why I keep calling them bolts, but I do. So, but it is a nut. Right, I'll knock you off again. We'll get set up back at the front, and we'll get the connections done on the bottom of the voltage regulator, and then we'll get it tightened up. Right, I'll be back in a minute. Right, now I think the way I've got this camera set is you won't be able to see I've fed the wires up for like the oil pressure sensor, but on the same bit of wire there's the connection for your crank position sensor. So position that light so I can see. Get this crank position sensor plug in. Now I've clipped the other part of the connector up onto the bottom of the voltage regulator. I can't get my fucking fingers in. That's it. Right, that's plugged in. I'll plug that in. The stator wires. Make sure we're there all the way in, and then just position the wires up underneath. There's a cable tie that goes around this lot, so just feed it in. Come on. this cable tie goes through the bottom of the connector for the stator, and it sort of locks, it goes through a little loop in the plug. As I say, it basically locks the connector together, so it's just so it can't sort of come loose. Now they're a pain to get on, but it's worth doing. It just sort of peace of mind that you know that this plug's never going to vibrate loose. And I'll chop that off at another time. The throttle position sensor wire is, as I say, clipped on underneath this. So what we'll do now is I'll get the right size socket, and we'll tighten the bolts up on the voltage regulator. Right, that's that done. And I was on about the oil pressure wiring. Obviously your oil pressure switch goes in this hole here, and on the same wire as the throttle position sensor is this one, which I've fed up. That'll plug into the end of your oil pressure switch, and once it's in, I'll just move this round a bit. See if I can get you in a position where you can see. Just down here, I've got some half screwdriver. In the bottom of the weldment is the proper name for it, where your brake lever goes on. There's a hole through there, and you get a cable tie that goes through, wraps around your wires, and basically hodds your wire into your frame. And there's another one nips through there once everything's on, just to hold everything steady. So I'll just knock you off for now. Right, we're going to put the oil filter mounting back on. Basically, I'll get myself a bolt and put some Loctite on it. Now I've put new O-rings on the housing. Just put a little dab of blue on these bolts. Yeah, I've got the new O-rings sat in. So basically just line it up. Actually, get my bolt through there. Something's not going right there. Oh yeah. Right, it seemed that the extension bar that was using was catching against the frame. Right, I'll just knock you off a sec, I'll be back in a minute. These oil filter mounting bolts torque up to 22 Newton meters, but I always just torque them up to 20 because I think 22 is just a bit too much. I'm just going to pull this camera back a bit. Right, back in a bit. What I'm going to do next is I'll fit the oil filter. I'll just grab it. Right, and I've just run a little bead of oil around the seal. Ooh. When you put your oil filter on, you just, once the rubber contacts the surface, you just want to give it sort of half to 3/4 of a turn. That's tight enough with an oil filter. Right, so next thing we'll do is we'll put the oil pressure gauge back in. The oil pressure switch, should I say. Right, I'll just knock you off for a sec. Back in a minute. Right, I've put a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads. Just screw it into place. Well, I'll just get a spanner. There is actually a torque setting for this, but when it's in the frame you can't really get the spanner on it properly, so I just wind it in until it goes nice and snug. And the torque setting's actually, it's only 14 Newton meters, so it's not as if it's mega tight anyways. Right, that'll do for that. And then once you've got that in, just pull your connector up through here. Line it up with the tab and then just push it in. Right, that's that plugged in. We shall move on to the next bit. Just knock you off. Right, neutral switch wiring and speed sensor. Right, just put the neutral switch on first. Basically, just get your wire so it sits nice and flush under there, because that will be underneath your starter. 2 connectors, just push them on. It's pretty straightforward how they go on as well, because they sort of get themselves into a position almost if you just lifted the wire over, they'd be ready to go on. So that's the easy one, just push that on. Well, everything's pretty easy really. Right, speed sensor, O-ring in the little groove. Just take the old O-ring off. And just, I'll just stick that on there for now. Get a new O-ring. I'll just get a dab of oil for the O-ring. Just put a light coating, should I say, of oil on the O-ring, and then just roll it up, drop it into its groove, and then with the oil that's on your fingers, just right, just position it over the hole. And when the O-ring makes contact, just give it a slight waggle and it'll slip in. Line the bolt hole up. Find my bolt. God knows where that's just gone. Here. Right, and a drop of blue Loctite. Right, and just drop that in the hole. This just torques down to 12 Newton meters. that's that. That's your speed sensor in. And then don't forget to get rid of the old O-ring. Chuck that over there with the rest of them. No, that's off your starter motor. Well, these are all off your starter motor, battery lives and to the maxi fuse and your earth that's in there. These will get put on once I've got the primary on, the inner primary on the other side. I can then put the starter motor back on. Once I've got the starter motor on, all these get bolted in place. Well, that actually the earth bolts on with the starter motor. So, and that plugs into the end of the starter motor. So I think what we'll do next is we'll get this clutch cover on. So on the end of your, clutch release cover, on the end of your cable where it screws into the release cover, just remove the O-ring. I don't even know if you can see this. Yeah, just remove the O-ring, the old one, and we'll be fitting a new one on there. So what I'll do is I'll just knock it off for a minute. I'll get all the bits together for the release cover and we'll get that put back on.